Okay, schedule. Many variables here, and the biggest item is the audit, right? If you've got if your finances are in a mess, it's going to take a lot longer. So the critical path item can be the audit, but in the case that the audit's already done or that the audit is straightforward, then 2 months to get ready to file with the SEC is a reasonable time frame, assuming management is paying enough attention. And 2 months to get through the SEC is a reasonable estimate. So 4 months from starting the process to being qualified is very doable. We've had 3 or 4 clients, companies that were qualified in a week by the SEC, or essentially qualified almost immediately. That was a mix. The SEC seems to like Reg A plus. I couldn't have said that 5 years ago, but the SEC does seem to like Reg A plus when it's a conventional offering. It doesn't have weird characteristics attached to it. And so that's part of the reason. And another contributing factor has been during the SPAC phase, there were so many IPOs that the SEC was spread very thin, and they tended to qualify offerings that were straightforward quickly, and the very complicated offerings would be deferred until later. So they did a really good job in my book during COVID to do things to increase their productivity, to qualify offerings more quickly, and S1s for that matter, S1 IPOs. So it could be less than 4 months, but 4 months is a good guide as to time. And then once you're qualified, you start marketing via whatever method it is, right? To your customers, to email lists if you've got special, wonderful, high quality email lists, and obviously via advertising outreach and leveraging the press and social media. So starting that process month 5, and you have 12 months in that first year to raise money, and you can extend it if you want to. That's the nature of the beast. You don't spend much money in the beginning on advertising, because in the very beginning, month 5, you don't know the ideal targeting, you don't know the ideal messaging, and you don't know if everything about the offering page setup is perfect yet. So we use heat mapping to help with that, for example. So when people like content on the offering page, we can see their activity. When they don't like it, we can see that activity. When they're confused, we can see that too. So we can do a lot of tuning of the content to optimize it. And all of that, all of the component parts, the advertising, the content, the key messages, the offering video, all these things matter intensely. On the schedule front, you need to be aware that when you involve a broker-dealer, then you involve FINRA. And FINRA is these days a lot slower than it used to be. It's a relatively slow bureaucracy, unfortunately. So be aware that broker-dealer involvement is an option in Reg A plus, and it has its advantages, but it is not a panacea. And a lot of entrepreneurs tend to think that by bringing in a broker-dealer, that's going to be a magic solution and they'll raise all the money. When in fact, in the early days of an offering, in most cases, broker-dealers will not raise any money because their reps don't want to risk their client relationships for an offering which is as yet unproven. Because if that investor were to invest, say put in $25,000 or something, and then later that offering does fail, then that isolated investor amongst a handful of other ones won't be very happy, right? So usually broker-dealers will only raise money once it's already been shown that this is a successful raise. So that comes down to us, to our marketing agency, to you, to your team, and a lot of excellence to show that this is already a successful raise. And then you can imagine a situation, say 6 months in, where you want to do an IPO and you bring in an underwriter, we would help with that. Or if you want to bring in a broker-dealer or more than one to access more investors. The only time I could see that I see where that makes sense is where we found a cost-effective, easy-to-reach target audience through advertising that was working beautifully, and now we've maxed out. Those that are going to invest have done so, and the rest aren't going to invest. So now we go into target group 2, and that might be too expensive. So if that's the case, that's a marvelous situation to bring in a broker-dealer. But my point about FINRA is, once you've negotiated the deal with the broker-dealer, that doesn't mean that you can add them right away. The SEC will add them immediately. FINRA blesses the deal terms, but FINRA is a slow bureaucracy. It might take 4 or 5 or 6 months to get through FINRA. So be aware of that. There are ways, and you don't have to have a broker-dealer.